Hey everybody, check it out. What's up? It's Hercules Porsche's professional intro. Yay!
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Hercules Porsche here, also known as Gallente in other places. And in today's video, we're going to be tackling a topic that strangely we never got around to before. We're going to be looking at CCP's CEO.
I come from CCP, where I've been for 16 years, first as CTO, and in 2004 I took over as CEO.
That was Hilmar Peterson, otherwise known as CCP Hilmar. And just putting a face to a name there. And I found this article where he was interviewed by a man named Dan Pearson, European editor. This was on the 27th of February, 2017 that the interview was recorded on. And I found this going through the Dust forums, of course. And it's a long interview about a whole bunch of stuff to do with the company. CCP, of course, is a fairly big company, best known for, of course, their 13-year legacy as the owners of EVE Online, but they also have a lot of spin-off projects, and of course are also quite well known for all their VR things. They just recently announced Project Spark, which I think I'll try to tackle in a different video once we have some more information about that. But it was definitely very notable that, out of all the CCP-related things they had to talk about, they did take time to discuss Dust 514. Not in a way I would have liked. I'm gonna, give you guys a rough guesstimate and say they gave maybe about 10% of the article to discussing Dust 514, which is a lot better than 0. But anyway, I'm gonna read off. First, I'm going to read a little blurb from the interviewer, and then we'll get to what CCP Hilmar had to respond to it with. Alright, from the interviewer, there have been cautionary moments on CCP's journey, and EVE Universe FPS Dust 514 was one of those rare low points. Coming at the end of the PS3 life cycle, it tried to link a console FPS into a vast shifting corporate empires of the EVE universe, allowing players to call down airstrikes from ships in EVE Online and fight for contested planets and moons. Conceptually, it was amazing. In practice, it never really worked. But with other games in the EVE universe now succeeding, is the dream of linking games at different scales still alive? All right. Here's where Hilmar starts to reply. Quote, I think people were very excited about the concept. It says Peterson. I see people excited about such concepts in other IPs and in gaming overall. So I think this is an aspiration that people gravitate towards. I think where we were wrong in our approach is that we tried to do it all in one go. And what we learned from trying it like that is that the first you have to establish 2 successful games before you start to solve how you involve any cross-pollination between those 2 games. What happened with Dust is that because we were trying to do all these things in the same time frame, we really did none of them well. Dust, at least when it came out, was not that fantastic a shooter. We actually worked on it quite a bit, and it was getting to be a pretty good one by the end. But then we were up against the PS3's life cycle horizon, so it was just too late at that point. But what we learned from that is that we have to do things in a certain order. First, you have to establish success. The connection to other games must not be a crutch for the following game. So we're doing a few games in the EVE IP. We have Valkyrie, we have Gunjack. They are pretty successful in their own right. They are established in their own community culture, etc. We still have this aspiration, so I think as we move through the next few years, we will see these things more naturally come together, building from mutual success and a genuine desire from the respective communities to connect, either because people belong to both communities or just because these are games happening kind of in the same time in the same universe. We already solved a lot of the technical aspects of doing it We have teams that have learned a lot how you make that happen. For example, in Dust, we were very focused on moment-to-moment gameplay, shooting a missile from space and it landing on top of a battle in Dust, which is phenomenally crazy when you think about it. But we pulled it off. But sitting in Eve and waiting for an airstrike to be called was maybe not the most fantastic gameplay in the world. So we've just come up with better language, better approaches to achieve this. We hope we'll be able to bring that to bear as we nurture the success of these new entrants in the Eve universe. So there you go, guys. That was the interview. Sorry my reading was not ultra dramatic, but I think I got the points across, and I guess from this point forward, I'm just going to be, spitballing some ideas across the rest of the footage. So yeah, my emotions obviously to that are a bit mixed. I'm sure you guys can guess how I feel more or less. I'm happy that at least the Dust 514 experience wasn't forgotten by the leadership of CCP. Definitely saddened that it wasn't remembered better. And of course, to kind of just put the whole timeline in perspective, I actually spent some time today reading the early reviews of Dust. I actually missed this period of Dust because I'm not one of these playing from beta players. But I do know on release, a lot of stuff in the game was pretty clunky. But by the time I got into it, it definitely felt like a game that could pull me in. And I could spend time talking about what didn't work in Dust. I think the biggest thing that didn't work was actually, the new player experience and, how the game is kind of set up for more experienced players to definitely crush newer players. And, spawn times were definitely too long, which does feed into that. But I don't want to get sidetracked with that. I think it's way more worthwhile to discuss what did work in Dust, what, the leadership of CCP might be forgetting. I do think that one of the biggest motivators keeping me in Dust for so long, keeping me interested in what was going on, was the fact that it had this really remarkable built-in social system. We had we had the kind of MMO stuff tacked into it, and some of it worked, some of it didn't, but I think the social aspects were all, in my mind at least, a huge success. I thought having, all of the various chat rooms, squad finder, voice communication, in-game mails from all the different things you were integrated into. That sounds like a weird thing to say, hey, this is what made an FPS work, but it really did. It really does change a first-person shooter perspective when, you have, like, kind of long-term social implications. And for me, one of the things that kept me coming back to Dust was kind of studying it as a social experiment. But you know what? It worked as a shooter, too, for me. I think the endless customization, deciding how much you wanted to invest in any given suit, what you know, what kind of suit you wanted to make, what kind of vehicle you wanted to make, how you wanted to use the various equipment and weapons you had on the battlefield once you'd put them there. Wow, I had some bad aim in this game. Anyway, I really enjoyed that. I really think that customization is, a big boon first-person shooters because it adds a whole dimension of what's going to happen next that you just don't find in nearly enough shooters. And, it felt like a decent enough shooter by the time I got to it, which was after, it had gotten all those savage reviews. Anyway, by that point, it was a good enough shooter that it felt like all of my, built-up FPS skills were relevant to it. But, it would be I'd be rehashing too much if I spent the whole video just trying to say, hey guys, that does 514. It wasn't so bad, it was pretty good. It really, this wasn't a bad shooter, guys. This was not a bad shooter towards the end, which Hilmar himself did acknowledge. But anyway, let's go back and talk about this article more, because I basically what I'm concerned with here is kind of the impressions that the leadership of CCP has of this game and of Eve FPS in general. What we can predict CCP's leadership will do, as a result of their impressions of Dust 514 and Eve FPS, and maybe what we can do to improve those impressions, if that's even possible. Of course, everything comes back to Project Nova and hoping it doesn't stay on the back burner too long. But when he says that part there about quote, as we move through the next few years, we'll see things come together. It's forgive me if I'm taking to reading through the in between the lines there, but he makes it sound like he's not desperate to bring us our next Eve-themed FPS anytime soon. Like I said, I'm stuck in a place where I'm guessing. But when the guy who runs the company has all of his enthusiasm for VR projects, including all the Eve-themed ones, as well as the new Project Spark sports game that's coming out. And, he doesn't seem to be manifesting a whole lot of enthusiasm for Project Nova or, whatever they're going to call the next Eve-themed FPS. Obviously it leaves me wishing that wasn't the case, because I had a good time here, and it would be great to know that I wouldn't have to wait, a whole crap ton of years for the Dust 514 successor. Of course, the big thing we're still waiting for is FanFest. I've recorded this video at the start of March 2017, so a little more than a month away before the company potentially starts to feel a little more pressure to actually discuss what they've been doing in terms of Eve FPS development. Of course, we got the Project Nova demos displayed for us at last year's FanFest, but then a whole lot of silence immediately following that demonstration. Very worrying silence. I mean, like I said, we're closing in on a year now of pretty much utter silence. Hard not to be concerned. By the way, guys, I just want to make it clear, I'm not an enemy of long development times. If a game takes a long time to develop in order to get it right, I'm totally fine with that. Basically just the thing that we love and the players who played it ought not to be forgotten by the company. That's all I want to get across. It's a very unique situation with Nova, of course, because the development of this new thing was offered to us as the reason for why we couldn't get to play in this universe anymore. That's a very different situation from, say, someone who plays, Battlefield or Call of Duty, and, they're enjoying their Battlefield, they're enjoying their game, and then they're excited about the successor to the game, but they still get to play their game while they're waiting for it. Like, we're left out in the cold, essentially, while we're waiting for the development of our next game. And, you gotta create enthusiasm essentially out of nowhere, and I think this game deserves more enthusiasm than it got. And I'm hoping that this YouTube channel that has put me in the crazy position of releasing footage for almost a year after the game closed, can be used by somebody else as kind of a proof, maybe. You guys get what I'm saying here? Nutty old Heracles can be a focal point for some conversation someone will have at FanFest. It's like, yeah, Dust, we didn't think too much of it, but there was this guy Heracles, and you won't believe it. He kept doing videos about that game almost a year after closure. He still wants to hear about it, and he's got a whole bunch of people following him who still want to hear about where Eve FPS goes. Maybe we gotta rethink this Dust thing. Maybe it's got a lot of potential there. I don't know. Anyway, I got a blooper reel for you guys that I'm gonna post over the outro. But today's video was pretty special. Obviously, it was a fun stomp, and this is probably the last of my Gallente Commando footage. I hope you guys really enjoyed. I welcome all your feedback, and until next time, I'll see you Starside. And we know, pretty good one by fucking cod sucker, fucking shit, bear, fucking goddamn it. They fucking we were wrong in our approach. Oh,